We are so pleased to have today as our guest Carrie Pattison. She is a practicing herbalist, licensed acupuncturist, and trained home birth midwife, a graduate of National University of Natural Medicine. Carrie serves as a national educator for natural factors and an adjunct professor of herbal studies at Huntington University of Health Sciences. And with everything going on right now, we've got COVID, we've got cold and flu season heading around the corner. We have stress levels going out crazy. She is the perfect person to have as our guest today. Welcome, Carrie.
Thanks so much, Jane. So excited to be here with you guys.
Carrie, as Jane was just saying, we got a lot going on.
Yes, we do.
And people, I don't think, connect their stress with their immune system. I think a lot of people believe if they just take their vitamin D and their vitamin C, that their immune system's fine, no matter how much they're pulling their hair out.
Yes, no, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I think when it comes to stress, well, I'm sure that, you know, we can talk about some of these words that people have negative connotations to. And stress is definitely one of them. People hear the word stress and they get stressed. But stress isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we can't just say stress. We have to talk like, well, is it physical stress because we had, you know, a bit of an aggressive workout at the gym yesterday? Is it mental stress? Is it emotional stress? What kind of stress is it? But what's really fascinating to me is that we are starting to acknowledge this. There's actually a new kind of trend in a science trend called psychoneuroimmunology. And the entire focus of this is to study the correlation between our immune system and how our brain handles stress. Like, what do they do with each other? And I think it's just a fascinating concept to chat about.
How does the stress affect our immune system? Because, again, everybody's right now trying to keep their bodies as healthy as possible, and there are things that we can do to help that, and we want to discuss some of that. But, you know, in the meantime, though, we're having all this stress. Is that undoing a lot of the things we're trying to accomplish?
Yes, I think it is. And I think that, you know, the thing we should talk about a little bit is cortisol. Because cortisol is another one of those words that has such a negative connotation, right? People hear cortisol and they're like, oh, belly fat. Well, yes, these things do happen. But cortisol is actually our body's normal process to dealing with inflammation. Inflammation of any kind, which when we're stressed out, are we have inflammation in our body. Think about, you get a paper cut. It gets red. It gets inflamed. This is a normal process in our body. It's a good thing. So inflammation is also a positive good thing. It's just when all of these things become out of balance and out of control that the issues comes into play. And this is where cortisol. So what happens is when we're stressed out, we have more inflammation in our body. So our body produces more cortisol because cortisol's job is to reduce inflammation in our body. But what happens is when we get chronic levels of cortisol that is too high and all of this inflammation that's too high, it really can negatively affect our immune system because our immune system kind of becomes resistant to another shot of cortisol. It's that thing where we all go on vacation and we get sick, right? Because finally our body's able to stop, but our immune system can't catch up. It's so overactive that it can't see the forest for the trees, right? In a situation like that. So we end up with an even further compromised immune system when these stress levels are just continuously present in our body.
So again, if we look at the common things, you know, people are hearing more and more aware of vitamin D and vitamin C.
Yeah.
but it's to me that's like it's obviously a good thing, but is it enough by itself?
Yeah, I would say it's a wonderful thing, but no, I would agree it's not enough by itself because we have to address all of these other things, right? You know, we could be taking vitamin D and vitamin C all day long, but if you are eating the standard American diet and you're not sleeping at night and you've been sitting on your couch for the last, 2 months because you're depressed or you're in a state of stress, like there's this mental health component, then, no matter what we do, our body is still going to be overly in a state of imbalance. And, this is where you can think about like that fight or flight situation, right? And, I think all of us with our cortisol levels and our stress levels, like we are just in a constant state of fight or flight where our bodies are trying to prepare to run away from a saber-toothed tiger. And that was the whole point of our stress response originally, historically. If we look at, we're sitting in a cave somewhere and there's a saber-toothed tiger coming after us. Our immune system has to shut down. We have to have blood shunted away from our brain because we want it to go to our lungs so that we can breathe more effectively. There's like all of these things that happen for a response like that. But when we're sitting at home and just reading the news and we have that sort of physical response, then it is going to negatively impact us, and those systems are going to stop working no matter what. So it is about this holistic approach, right? A holistic approach to how we're addressing multiple aspects of our health.
Now, you mentioned sleep as being a factor, and we've been hearing it from a lot of our patients and customers coming into the Tree of Life, is that they are not sleeping as well right now. And so they feel like all day long they're kind of just dragging around. Are there things that they can do to help assist the sleep, but also is the sleep, not getting good sleep, affecting the immune system?
I think that they are hand in hand with each other, but when we talk about sleep, I think that we should talk about cortisol again. So, cortisol is so mysterious for people, but it's such a key and critical part of our body. Our cortisol is actually what makes us wake up. So we should have our normal 24-hour circadian rhythm. This is the rhythm that our body utilizes to put ourselves to sleep and to wake up. So, around 9 p.m., as it's starting to get dark out, our melatonin levels should increase, right? And they should be just normally kind of going up until 3 o'clock in the morning where they kind of peak, and then they start going down. And at the same time that they're going down, then what we see is an increase in cortisol to wake us up. And then that cortisol should be kind of going up continuously through the day until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when it starts decreasing off as our body prepares for coming into that melatonin state. This is why so many people experience that 3 o'clock slump, because their cortisol levels haven't even gotten there. Maybe their cortisol levels stopped doing anything at 11 o'clock in the morning and they have just been living off of, excess adrenaline or something for that whole period of time. Or what can happen often when we are under long extended periods of stress or something is disrupted in our life are that cortisol melatonin cycle can be completely imbalanced. So, I can do hormone profiles with people and see that their cortisol starts actually coming up at like 6 p.m. And then that's why they're up all night, or that's why they're continuously waking up and they're tired and they're fried, because their cortisol levels are not appropriate on that cycle. So there are a lot of things that we can do to really help offset that. And one of my favorites is actually Pharma-GABA. GABA is an amazing product because we know that specifically with Pharma-GABA, there's the clinical research to show that you will see cortisol levels decrease within 15 to 20 minutes. And when we're dealing with excessive cortisol levels, we want to calm everything down. So I actually suggest for people to take Pharma-GABA when they're trying to go to sleep, because it will give us that little extra boost of calming down the cortisol levels. I like it kind of turns off that excess head chatter. And then it starts to kind of work on reprocessing the body, because GABA is is an inhibitory neurotransmitter for us. So it's calming things down in the brain.
Carrie, you were talking about the pharma GABA. There's a relatively newer formula out by Natural Factors called Mind Retreat, which I believe does have the pharma GABA in it.
Yes, it does. I actually have been utilizing the Mind Retreat more and more frequently lately, because I see it having so many unique aspects to it. You've got the pharma GABA in there, which we want pharma GABA because this is one that has been proven. It's actually a naturally derived. It's been fermented from an amino acid source. So it's not coming from a synthetic ingredient at all, which is lovely. We've got the B6 in there, vitamin B6, which is really going to help with relaxation, physical relaxation as well. It's known as one of those stress B vitamins. Magnesium. Oh, my goodness. We could talk about magnesium for an entire week, right? So many things that it can do for us, both from a physical and emotional perspective. But another thing that, kind of for me, the little secret of the Mind Retreat is the lemon balm in there, Melissa officinalis. And this is something where, you can grow lemon balm. It's in the mint family. So I tell people, if you're going to grow it, make sure you put it in a pot, because it will take over. But it's so calming and relaxing. But it also has this other tricky side to it where it can be utilized for immune support. And that's what I like to remind people. Herbs don't just do one thing. They have a lot of different personalities to them. So if we need a little bit of that immune support from the lemon balm, that's what's going to show up and come out for us. So it's kind of a really nice formula because it branches so many of the things that we're talking about today.
And lemon balm, isn't lemon balm particularly antiviral?
Absolutely, yes. It's known to be utilized for a lot of those types of situations specifically. And it's actually one of my favorites for that because it's not it's not a big hammer, right? So we do have some herbs that can be pretty aggressive in how they deal with situations. I think about like oregano and things like that, where, it's just a big power hammer in there. But sometimes, especially when we talk about our bodies being in a state of stress over an extended period of time, we need to be more gentle with it. We need to give it a hug. And lemon balm is an herb that I think is an extremely powerful herb. It's not lacking in its ability to address some sort of invader, but it has a little bit more, let's say, of like a loving feminine side to it as well, where we get that nice calming relaxation too.
Do you usually recommend taking the Mind Retreat like about a half an hour before people go to bed to try and, help them, ease into a nice sleep, or right at bedtime, or if they should wake up in the middle of the night, they don't have difficulty getting to sleep, but they have trouble staying asleep. Do you have any recommendations on that?
I actually have utilized this personally, just kind of in the moment thing, because I find it does, it works pretty rapidly. So I will take a capsule as needed. So I think all of those suggestions you just made would be appropriate, absolutely, with this. Especially, I really do suggest people something like the Mind Retreat or our Tranquil Sleep formula at Natural Factors. Keep it on your bedstand. do take it in the middle of the night if you need to. They don't have any of these stimulants, like I don't suggest melatonin in the middle of the night because we're wanting to have natural curvatures. But this is something that you can absolutely do at any point in time. And I have certainly started my day out with it. I've taken it in the middle of the day, and it's really just such a beautiful one for so many different perspectives. I'm sure that you could certainly kick in a little bit more on how that magnesium, and this is the glycinate form. So it's the form that we know is the most readily absorbed in the body, so the body can absolutely utilize it immediately.
And the nice thing about the Tranquil Sleep, which is also made by Natural Factors, is they have the chewable, which for some people, they don't want to be swallowing capsule, or like I said, you have it on your nightstand and you don't have to go looking for that, drink of water to have, to get it down. It's probably one of the most popular supplements that we do sell at the Tree of Life Wellness Center.
Because it works. Yeah, because it works.
Sometimes, Carrie, you mentioned how, sometimes you don't want to bring out the big hammer, but sometimes you do.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
we have found over the last few years, the anti-V, we have recommended a ton in our office and on this show. And to me, it is my personal go-to. If I feel like I got symptoms, like I might be catching something, I don't know what it is, might be cold, flu, I'm just getting those initial symptoms, I jump on that anti-V, and it's a hammer.
Yes, it's a hammer. I agree. But you know what? It's interesting because I absolutely, in those acute stages, when you need to aggressively address something, absolute hammer. But you know what's so fascinating about the anti-V is going back to how herbs do more than one thing. Well, we also have astragalus in there, which is this wonderful adaptogen. It's an herb that supports overall stress response. We've got licorice in there. Both of these are immune herbs, but they also support stress response. So that's actually my favorite aspect of the anti-V is it's a hammer when you need it, but you can also utilize it daily, and it's just a couple of drops a day more as something to promote and support your immune system to hopefully prevent something, right? And that's what we want to do is we want to be giving our body the vitamin D, the vitamin C, these things to really help support our immune system so when the time comes, it can jump into action. And that's something that is so unique with the anti-V is you can utilize it, you can utilize it over the course of a couple of months, a couple of drops a day, but then you can aggressively hammer with it. And it just is that little switch of those herbs knowing, oh, now I need to shift and change what I'm doing because now we have a different situation to address. And I think we could probably all agree that herbs are significantly more intelligent than we are, and they know what to do depending upon the situation and what our bodies need. And I appreciate and respect them for that purpose.
And just want to let people know that the anti-V also comes in capsule form because some people, don't want to do drops. I mean, everybody has their preferences. But we usually suggest, and I don't know if you would agree, that at the first sign of if you're not taking the anti-V regularly, at the first sign of, the sore throat or that kind of weird feeling like something's coming, it's really best to jump on it right away, start taking the anti-V, because probably by the next day you'll feel better and you won't need as much.
Yes, and it has the nice, I really like it because it takes away the confusion. There's little marker lines on the dropper. So okay, I need to take this much, and you're just going to hit it every 2 to 3 hours. This is the traditional European dosing style, right? Hit it every 2 to 3 hours while you're awake. Work through it. Like, I would not hesitate to tell somebody, finish off that entire bottle in 2 days. Like, what we need to be doing is we need to be aggressive. Bacteria can double themselves every 20 minutes. So what we need to do is we need to stop that in its tracks so that we don't end up with an abundance where our immune system can no longer keep up.
Well, Carrie, unfortunately, we've run out of time. We could talk to you for, ever here. But we want to thank you so much for joining us today. And again,
thank you for having me.
Go to naturalfactors.com. You can see all their wonderful products. But again, put particularly at the top of your list the anti-V formula, as well as the tranquil sleep and the mind retreat. And I'm sure we're going to get through these next particularly intense months more easily.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You
Take
too.
care.